Hello, I'm Raider Pilot Steve, and this is my review of the Duxford Flying Evening 2025, which took place at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford. The event takes place after a typical day at the museum, despite it closing earlier to non-ticket holders. There wasn't a lot of ground attractions, but the museums were reopened again later in the evening. The weather was absolutely beautiful with clear skies and very little wind, which led to a very entertaining evening of flying. I visited the flying aircraft hangars to see what was about and got to see quite a few interesting types, including a quartet of Boeing Stearman K-Dets, which had been used in the filming of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. There was also the Fighter Collection's Curtiss P-40C Tomahawk 2B, which will hopefully be back displaying soon. Fighter Aviation Engineering Limited's Hawker Tempest Mark II was also on show in the hangar, and it will hopefully soon make its UK airshow debut. There was a Nordin AT-16 Harbour 2B in Royal Canadian Air Force colours, and finally there was a French-built Stomp SV-4C biplane. Despite the lack of ground attractions, there was a few aircraft on display in the showground. First was Plain Sailing's Canadian Vickers PBV-1A Canzo A, which was open for visitors to look inside prior to the start of the flying display. Outside of the Fighter Collection's hangar was their Gloucester Gladiator Mark II, one of only two airworthy examples in the world. There was a variety of vintage aircraft that were viewable along the main flight line, including Peter Kuiper's historic Beechcraft D-17S Staggerwing, David and Mark Miller's de Havilland DH-89A Dragon Repeat, which is a regular on the airshow circuit, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight's Douglas DC-3C Dakota 3 in its new Southeast Asia Command scheme, Hawker Heritage's Hawker Hurricane Mark IIB, which is the world's first and only two-seat Hurricane, a pair of Pitt Specials including an S1S and an S2B, Fighter Aviation Engineering Limited Supermarine Spitfire LF5C, the Aircraft Restoration Company Supermarine Spitfire T9, and finally a Yakovlev Yak-52, which would have joined the Flying Comrades in the flying display but couldn't due to a technical fault. There was also a good number of general aviation types on show, including a Beechcraft F-33A Bonanza, a Cessna 421C Golden Eagle, a Cirrus SR-22 GTS, a Cirrus SR-22T, an Extra EA-230, a Luscombe 8E Silvair, a Piper PA-18 Super Cub, a Piper PA-28 Cherokee, a Piper PA-28 Cherokee C, a Piper PA-28 Turbo Arrow 3, a Reims F-172M Skyhawk, a Reims F-177RG Cardinal, a Reims FR-150 Aerobat, a Robin DR-400 Regent, a Robinson R-44 Astro, and finally a Vans RV-8. The show kicked off at around 6 o'clock with the Duxford-based display team, the Flying Comrades, which flew a formation of a Yakovlev Yak-18T and a pair of Yakovlev Yak-52s, not free unfortunately. The team performed a very entertaining display full of formation passes and a very satisfying break at crowd centre. Next came a very special display by Plain Sailing's Canadian Vickers PBV-1A Canzo A, which paid tribute to John Cruikshank VC, who passed away shortly before the show at the age of 105. John was the last living recipient to receive the Victoria Cross during World War II. He was awarded the VC because of his bravery during an attack on a German U-boat on the 17th of July 1944, whilst flying a 210 Squadron Catalina flying boat. The maritime theme continued with the Fighter Collection's Hawk and Nimrod 1, which put on a tight display and stood out well in the sunlight. This aircraft was the fourth production Nimrod 1 to be built in 1931 and is currently the only airworthy Nimrod in the world. Duxford's most famous resident aircraft took to the air next. This was of course the Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress Sally B, which was celebrating 50 years residing in the UK this season. The iconic American bomber put on a graceful series of flypasts. Big piston warbirds were the next focus, courtesy of Fighter Aviation Engineering Limited, who provided their Hawker Fury FB-11 and Republic P-47D Thunderbolt Nellie B, which put on a great pairs display. Aviation of the First World War era was also represented, with the historic aircraft collections Airco DH-9 and Paul Ford's Fokker DR-1 replica, which performed a series of gentle circuits. This particular DH-9 was built in 1918 for the Royal Flying Corps, but ended up in India. Its remains were found in an elephant stable in 2000 and eventually returned to the air in 2019 after a lengthy restoration. This is the world's only genuine World War I bomber that is airworthy. The triplane is a faithful replica that is painted to represent the iconic Red Baron. These were another pair of aircraft that I have missed seeing in the air on several occasions. Moving forward to World War II was a pair of iconic British warbirds that commemorated the 85th anniversary of both the Battle of France and the Battle of Britain. This was the Supermarine Spitfire Mark 1A and the Hawker Hurricane Mark I, operated by the Imperial War Museum and Hurricane 501 respectively. The duo performed several formation passes before putting on their own solo routines. Up next was the return of the Canadair CL-13B Sabre Mark VI from Mistral Warbirds, which performed an excellent display, probably the best display that can be given by a swept-wing vintage jet with the current restrictions. The CL-13B is a Canadian-built version of the North American F-86E Sabre, but with a more powerful engine and is regarded as the highest performing variant of the F-86 series of jets. Another theme, highlighted by the event, was the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, or Victory over Japan Day, which took place the day before the show. This was commemorated by a trio of fighters operated by the Fighter Collection. This featured the Curtiss P-40F Kitty Hawk Mark II Lee's Hope, the Grumman FM2 Wildcat, and the Curtiss Hawk 75A-1, which flew a series of formation passes before putting on some short solo displays. The skies had now darkened enough for the show's final two display acts, both of which utilised pyrotechnics. First was Bob Grimstead in his Fournier RF-4D, known as the Red Hawk, who gave an incredible aerobatic performance, complete with wingtip-mounted pyrotechnics and smoke, as well as fireworks launched from the aircraft itself. This season would mark Bob's final display season, and this was his final pyrotechnic display and his penultimate display before retiring from display flying. The show was closed by Airborne Pyrotechnics, which is formed by a pair of Grob G109Bs flown by Tim and Tom Dews. This display was more akin to an aerial ballet, with gentle formation passes, solo aerobatics and, of course, wingtip-mounted pyrotechnics and smoke. The aircraft themselves also further enhanced their appearance in the sky with LED lights that continuously changed colours throughout the performance. In conclusion, the Duxford Flying Evening 2025 was an incredible experience, massively helped by the fantastic weather conditions. The laid-back atmosphere and top-quality flying displays make this a show not to be missed. My personal highlights were the closing pyrotechnic displays, and I was so happy to finally see the DH-9 and Fokker DR-1 replica in the air. I also really enjoyed seeing the Sabre again and the trio of warbirds that marks the VJ Day anniversary. If you wish to see more of my photos from this event and others, I have linked my Flickr page in the description below. My next show will be the Shuttleworth Best of British Air Show. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you join me in the next one. Bye!